And all the excitement for another House of the Dragon coming out this summer, season 2, we also get news of another Game of Thrones prequel series that HBO is going to create. It's called Knights of the Seven Kingdom, The Hedge Knight. It actually sounds kind of interesting, but I'll give you some details before we dive into a little synopsis of the story, I guess, if you guys are not avid readers of Martin's work. But this article from Deadline says, we're getting a bit more information about the latest Game of Thrones spinoff during Warner Bros. Discovery earnings call Friday. It revealed a prequel, The Knights of the Seven Kingdoms, The Hedge Knight, is currently in pre-production and will premiere in late 2025. Ordered a series on April 2023, the prequel is based on George R. R. Martin's Duncan and Egg fantasy novel. It looks like some of the people that are involved with House of the Dragon are going to be helping, or at least helping create this, and I wonder if that means like House of the Dragon season 2 is going to be wrapped, like they're going to be done with it. I don't know. Do you think we're going to finish the House of the Dragon story, or at least that portion of the Targaryen time there?
I think there's going to be like quite a couple more seasons.
I think at the very least, we get 3 seasons, right? Yeah. At the very least, I wrap it up in 3 seasons, have a nice, concise, well filmed and executed show.
I'm pretty sure they have come up with how many seasons, as long as this one goes really well.
Right now, on a quick Google search, it looks like there's slated to be 4 House of the Dragon seasons.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we might have 2 more after this summer, which, as long as they don't, fall apart the way Game of Thrones did, I think that's a happy number.
Yeah, and they need to get back to doing a season a year and not 2 years. The fall off from the viewership that you get after 2 years, people are going to come back and they're going to enjoy it. But you maintain kind of your stride with that 1 season a year.
It probably contributed because of the strike, why we had such a long time, the actors strike that was going on last year.
And lots of CG. There's a lot more CG in this show than Game of Thrones had.
Getting into a quick synopsis to not spoil anything for the series that's going to come out in 2025. A century before the events of Game of Thrones, 2 unlikely heroes wandered Westeros. A young, naive, but courageous knight, Sir Duncan the Tall, and his diminutive squire, Egg. Set in the age when the Targaryen line still holds the Iron Throne and the memory of the last dragon has not yet passed from living memory. This is in between House of the Dragon and the events of Game of Thrones, correct?
Yeah.
That's kind of what it seems, about a century before. I'm curious if this is about 100 years. I could be totally, obviously, there's many Aegons, in the Targaryen lineage. Egg is, at least I know from Game of Thrones, was the short name, I guess you might say, for one of the Targaryens that was referred to in Game of Thrones. Is that the same? Is that the same guy?
I think so.
It's the same one. What was his name? The Maester for Castle Black in Game of Thrones, his brother Egg. But remember, when he was dying, he was going, Egg, and he was talking to someone like it was his brother.
Okay.
You remember that?
Could have been, yeah. I know he's a Targaryen, and I know he's siblings with those 2, the Mad King and the Maester.
So this looks like it's going to be an interesting tale. Obviously, unless you're a fan of the books, you don't have a ton of knowledge around this. And what do you think? Do you think, sort of like what we considered before House of the Dragon came out, do you think it makes it better or worse to read up on this information before the show comes out, so you know what's going on?
This is probably not going to be as confusing because House of the Dragon is more of, a historical tale. It's not so much like a story, an epic adventure. It's a fantasy adventure. It's more a historical adventure. Yeah. So I don't think it's going to be as confusing as House of the Dragon.
It is the Mad King is Egg.
Okay. In this story. Fascinating. So the Mad King from Game of Thrones.
I know it's theorized that Duncan is potentially Hodor's father because Duncan's so big
Oh,
And
for real?
he traveled the land a lot. He stopped in Winterfell a couple times. You never know.
Oh,
You never
yeah.
know.
That's a fun little factoid. So
Mhm.
if you guys want to read the book before the series comes out, it's George R. R. Martin's book called Dunk and Egg. I wanted to ask you guys though, we have seen so many fall off, so many promised series fall off or be canceled with Game of Thrones related stories, and really the only one that survived up to this point is House of the Dragon. Do you think this is actually going to make it? This seems kind of like a strange one to go with out of all the ones that's been canceled.
This is a fan favorite of the
Yeah.
Game of Thrones world. Lots of people like the Dunk and Egg stories.
Right.
And some of I've heard from some people that have read it. It's like some of their favorite characters are in this book.
Right.
I think it really is going to depend on how well season 2 does and what it's going to be looking like for the future of Game of Thrones and HBO with season 2. I think if season 2 comes out and rocks and is really good, then people are going to be like, yeah, give us more. And the studio is going to be more willing to shell out more.
And we have seen with Star Wars, to bring that into it a little bit, we followed one line of the Skywalkers for generations, and
Right.
Hollywood in general likes to, follow the one family tree, the familiar name,
Yeah.
as they like to say, instead of going with somebody else. So the familiarness of the characters will also shed more light and be more favorable into making a show about it.
Yeah, you're only 100 years out from the Game of Thrones story, so there's going to be able to be lots of Easter eggs that people can see, because 100 years isn't that long. The look of Westeros is going to be more similar to what people are familiar with.
Let us know if you guys are excited for a new Aegon and
No,
what's the other
it's
character?
Dunk and Egg.
Dunk and Egg.
Well, that's the name of the book, right?
Are you guys excited for a show about those two characters? Subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next time.